Hey folks, Studio here. So for today's daily, we will be looking at two things, a support team composition, and we'll also briefly look at Soraka and how she lands. Been trying something different, looking at compositions rather than characters so much, so just been seeing how it's working. Let's see, in terms of news, I casted a 4PL All or Nothing Invitational Tournament yesterday on Wednesday, April 25th? Yes, April 25th. So that was a pretty cool tournament. Got to see absolute legends do quite a bit of work at the end. And yeah, highly recommend it. I believe I'm casting 4PL's just normal weekly tournament once again on Saturday. I do not know for sure, but I'm pretty sure yes. Aside from that, this is a 2100 ELO solo queue game with his Soraka. And everything was not planned in this game. This once again, solo queue game. So the team composition that happened was totally on accident. So let's hop into that, and I'll cover quite a bit more at the end. So first things first, let's see who's playing who. We got Man5yak on Soraka, HXC Gemini X on Graves, Hui07 on Dr. Mundo, X Nike on Nidalee, J Rizzy Fushizzy on Kale, Ben MF Chu on Riven, Of Serenity on Janna, Yeah Buddy on Sivir, Denlo on Twitch, and Zixakun X on Victor. Now, you'll notice there's a lot of support, and a support Kale even. We have Soraka going mid, Nidalee in the top lane, Kale in the bot lane. It is 3 supports on this composition. This is a support-oriented composition, and these have actually been popping up quite a bit, and they play very, very differently than normal compositions. They don't want to go into a burst fight. They want to go into very, very long sustained fights. But Soraka mid, let's talk about her first. Her big weakness is that she's very, very susceptible to ganks. Star Call pushes like crazy. And the problem is it doesn't do a lot of damage early on, and you have to watch out for her slow move speed and her total lack of escapes. She can get out of ganks sometimes with Astral Blessing, just healing herself and flashing or ghosting and trying to get away. But the enemy team has Twitch, one of the best early game gankers. And you'll notice Victor came from the top side of the jungle. That wasn't blue buff. So either he did wraiths or he helped Twitch do red. So Twitch is most likely with red buff right now and is going to gank at level 2. He had Ignite. So Man5yak has to play defensively until he sees that Twitch, because he could get ganked himself. Twitch goes top lane, it doesn't get a kill. That's actually very, very good and very, very cool for Man5yak and the rest of his team. And as this happens, Mundo goes and decides to counter jungle the Twitch, which makes sense. If you see an opening to counter jungle like that, go for it. And Twitch himself is very, very open to being counter jungled because he is not good at jungling, and any setback is bad for him. Now, unfortunately, Victor catches Mundo in the jungle. Mundo went for wraiths, might have been a bit too greedy, and he has to get out of this fight now. So the Soraka heal comes out, Mundo was ignited, so he's still very, very low. And bot lane has actually disappeared. They're coming in to close the fight. And Maniac attacks this bot lane composition. And I wondered why he did it when I first saw it, because he's a level 2 Soraka. He wasn't going to win that fight. However, think about it. What did Mundo have that he didn't want that Sivir to have and he didn't want that Victor to have? Blue buff. So Maniac threw himself at that composition to make sure Mundo would get out, because why go for the Mundo when you can kill the Soraka instead? And he secured blue buff for his team. Mundo got out of there. Blue buff did not end up on Victor, Janna, or Sivir, any of which with blue buff is actually an incredible pain and very, very hard to deal with. So he decided, you know what? I can die. I can die in exchange for Mundo. It'll be better for my team, and it will be better just to sacrifice my unicorn goat girl for that blue buff to stay on Mundo. Now, unfortunately, he used flash, he used heal. He's not in a good position because of that Twitch. And laning against a Twitch can be very, very odd. If you hear a crow, I'm sorry. But he has to play defensively, and Soraka actually has a pretty cool tool for that Twitch. Look at Star Call, and notice how sometimes it's grayed out, sometimes it's purple. When it is grayed out, that means there's nothing in range, and when it's purple, it means you can use it because there's something in range. Now, why that matters is because Twitch will actually proc that even if he's invisible. So Maniac, for the most part, he's been going in, trying to get a CS, trying to kill some creeps, then he'll back off. And that's a great way to make sure Twitch isn't nearby. You go in, get some gold, back off, and you can tell whether he's nearby or not. The problem is, if he ever stays committed, which he has done a few times, Twitch will be able to sneak up on him and just start the fight off. With the slow from Twitch and the lack of escapes from Soraka and the ignite from either Twitch or Victor, he's gonna die if he gets caught. His best bet is just trying to heal or maybe go for a fight, but there's no way he can escape from that Twitch or Victor, especially if Victor did get an early point in his stun. Because Twitch stun and Victor follow each other up very, very well. Not Twitch stun, Twitch slow. And what could Maniac have done? Well, he could have done a few other things, actually. He could have bought a Vision Ward. Now, normally you want to ward mid. You want to ward a few specific spots for the enemy jungler. Cannot do this in the case of Soraka versus Twitch. What can Twitch do? He can turn invisible. So those wards may not be useful and actually just may provide a false sense of security. So he's going to put a ward just in the mid lane to look for Twitch. If he had more gold to spend, he could go ahead and spread them out just to be safer. And this is more or less the area it'll reveal. It's obviously going to be a circle rather than this wide square, but it will cover most of the mid lane entrances. Twitch can always sneak in from behind, but he just died, so that's a good save time for Soraka. And when Soraka can actually apply pressure, she's very, very dangerous mid. She works well because she can just constantly harass. And Mundo goes for that dive, and a few things happened there. Maniac was a bit too slow on the ult. I do see the number pop up, but I don't think it actually healed Mundo, so Maniac, gotta work on that. And Mundo walked in, tanked the tower, and got stunned. Now, unfortunately, Soraka doesn't have any burst. If you look at Star Call, it's actually decent damage, but what really makes it strong is the fact that it removes MR on every cast. So, after 8 seconds, the enemy might be missing 40 magic resist, which is a ton. But that takes 8 seconds, and Mundo only had about 4 seconds to survive in that tower. So, it's all about using your strengths. And in that case, Mundo tried to use Soraka as a normal AP carry. I mean, think about it. Anivia, Cassiopeia, Ryze, everybody would have killed Victor instantly under that tower. But Soraka, no, she just doesn't have the damage. And sadly, her heal's not a very high level, so the mitigation she provided wasn't that much. And as Soraka, you usually prioritize Q, then W, then E. You can change it up. Generally, the W you want at a high level just for those mid-game fights, so you can tank quite a bit of damage. And Twitch just ganked top lane. So what do you do in response to that? This is something you see in tournament games. If you see their jungler top and your jungler is near mid, preferably near dragon, kill dragon right away. It's going to be a 3v4 unless they have someone like Shen or a top laner with teleport. And if they do, well, it's a bit different, but in this case they don't. So go for that 3v4 that the enemy would have to fight to defend that dragon and just kill it, get that gold. You're exchanging a kill top lane for dragon. Now, Soraka herself is very, very cool because she has global presence with her ult. So as you can see, there are lots of pings going out on bot lane. That's a good sign to look in the bot lane just to see what's going on. He tosses out that heal when he thinks, you know what, they might actually need it. And it comes very, very close. Had Kayle used her ult at the same time she had with that heal, she would have died. Or without that heal. And Mundo's going to go for another gank, and you're going to know Soraka just doesn't do enough damage. Especially now, with her ult down, it's just not enough. Maniac did make a mistake there. He walked into Victor's CC, and he's going to make another mistake right here. He has a chance to try and escape and meet Nidalee, but he goes for the fight against Janna and Twitch. And he realizes his mistake. I mean, he even says it in chat, hindsight. So, it's generally a better idea to try and get out of situations like that instead of fight. If you're very far ahead and you're playing a very, very bursty character, it can work, but Soraka, I mean, she just has to stay alive for so long that it wouldn't be effective. And Maniac, he decides to buy a Woda and cooldown boots. So this is a less traditional Soraka build, actually. Normally, Sorakas will get Merc Treads and a Woda. And from there, you'll see them build into something very, very tanky, like Frozen Heart. Maybe a Rylai's. The Rylai's being the big maybe. But the reason for this is, like I said before, Soraka wants to get into these really long engagements. So you use the Woda to lifesteal with the Star Call. I mean, it's hitting many targets most of the time, so provide quite a bit of regen. And the cooldown boots don't provide a whole lot of defense against Victor, and as you can see, he's almost dying to Victor, but the heal comes out, the ult comes out. The fact that Mundo barely died and Soraka barely survived are actually both good and bad. It's bad because it means they're giving the enemy team an advantage right now. It's good because it shows that they're still tanky, even though they've been relatively behind. Mundo's been dying a lot, and Soraka's very low level right now. And Victor just blows her up. Now, unfortunately, the support team composition is incredibly dependent on fighting as a team. You can't fight in these spread out fights, especially when the enemy's grouped up. So that was a 3v5, Graves was out of position. They almost got him out of dodge with both a Soraka heal and Kayle ult, but it wasn't enough. But think about it this way, in later fights, Graves is going to have a chance to not die for a very long time. She's going to be healed by Soraka, he's going to be ulted by Kayle, there will be another heal from Nidalee to provide extra damage and just more sustain. But they have to reach that point, and that's the scary part, but you can be far behind with this composition. And that's something important to know, you don't have to actually be super far ahead. And luckily Soraka scales quite a bit with levels, and this exchange right here, you actually see Mundo walk on out of there. Now, Maniac uses ult at the last second. He manages to bait Yeah Buddy to use a flash. He still gets the kill, and that's great for Yeah Buddy, but that flash is down and they're low on health. Now we're going to see Soraka try and just kill everybody with her sustained damage. It's not particularly high right now, which is going to be unfortunate. But 2 seconds of the fight, Sivir and Twitch have to retreat. And now we have Riven trying to do a lot, but she just cannot actually deal with the speed boost from Kayle. She can't deal with Graves' mobility, and she actually gets chased out by Soraka, Kayle, and Graves. Unfortunately, they don't get the kill, but you know what? Top is pushing. Nidalee got that tower. And even though they had 5 people down there in the end, what could red team do? The away team could do nothing. Took a few tries, but I got it. And they actually whittled them down so low they could take Dragon. And that was actually kind of risky, but they saw Victor in the top lane defending, and they knew that Twitch and Sivir had to go back to base. Had they stayed, well, they would have been able to try and fight a Dragon and die immediately. Which, I don't know, maybe it's your strategy, feed the enemy team, give them some confidence. But, as you can see, Graves, survived that Victor ult. There's heals coming out from Kayle, Nidalee, and Soraka onto Graves. And that's what makes this composition strong. You can't die. And this applies to team fights. This also applies to just, sustained poke fights. Victor blows a lot, and Graves is going to be at full health in a very short amount of time. Now, something to note is there is no pink ward for the home team right now. They're all in mid, they're all kind of hanging out, but where's the vision for Twitch? And the problem Twitch has is he's very positioning dependent, and oracles and vision wards make it much harder for him to position. If you can blow him up before he gets into a good spot, he's not going to do anything. I love how they start this fight. Janna goes in, takes a ton of damage. She is the bait. Unfortunately, she gets silenced, and she does not survive, thanks to the Graves ult. This sets up Twitch to try and go ahead and fight from the back, but he just can't do enough damage to break through a home team right now. Riven tries to do the same thing. She tries to go after Graves, but she has to eventually switch to Maniac, and he still survives for quite a while. He does go down, but now they have to retreat, and Nidalee finally shows up after hanging out in the top lane. So that fight could have gone better. Janna had to survive a little longer, but just look at how the composition worked out. People took a lot of damage, they got healed right back up, and they just kept fighting. And you'll see the enemy team blow cooldowns, they just don't do enough. This is actually a composition people are having a lot of trouble with right now. Not with these heroes. Usually you see a Lulu somewhere in the mix, or maybe a Lulu Taric Soraka combination. But overall the idea is you just get so tanky you can't die. And it's an alternative to tanky DPS. So in this case, the tanky DPS is not because we have a bunch of people with frozen hearts and really high HP. It's because we have a bunch of people who will boost your armor and just refill your HP. You can only have 2,000 max HP, but if you get healed for 800, you got that much more life to use. It may sound simple, but in play, when you actually see it, it just ruins the burst of compositions. And sometimes they just fall so far behind it doesn't work. But quite often, the skills used to just do damage and try and kill someone is not worth it just because the mitigation is going to be so high. And a fight breaks out, a Vision Ward is planted for Twitch, he cannot actually get into his good position. It's actually a very, very slow burn for both teams. They're both trying to do damage, they're just in each other. But Graves was not there for the start of that fight, and he's just here to clean up. And just look at the HP on everybody for a home team. The only person who's low is Nidalee, and luckily Nidalee's very, very mobile, and she can heal herself up quite a bit. And that's just how their composition works. They took a lot of damage, they just made sure the fight lasted for long enough. They went back out, they went back in, Graves showed up, and they just cleaned house. Triple heal isn't even that strong with these heroes. Nidalee's heal is decent, Soraka's heal is very good, but Kayle does not have a strong heal. Kayle's heal is one of the weakest heals in the game, even with the recent buffs to it. And she's still providing quite a bit of just support with her speed boost and with her very, very okay heal. Now, away team's going to go ahead and try and Baron off this, and this is where it gets really scary, especially because J-Rizzy goes back. Normally you see people like, alright, they're going for Baron, I'm just going to go ahead and hide nearby. But this is a 4v5 at Baron. A lot of ults were used in that last fight. Well, actually Graves' ult is the only one that's down. And a lot of burst comes out from Baron and from home team onto Sivir. They get her very, very quickly. Maniac is in the enemy team though. Once again, no escapes, and he dies. So Graves and Soraka are down. Now it's up to Mundo, Nidalee, and Kayle to defend against the enemy team. And as you can see, Nidalee is just very, very mobile. The slows from Twitch are very, very strong, but not enough to keep her in place, especially with that flash, and the fight just kind of ends. It's one of those fights that peters out just because there's not enough catch potential from red team. They don't have anything to get someone out of position outside of Twitch walking up to them, and since they knew Twitch was nearby, that wasn't going to happen. Unfortunately, Victor tries to set up a trap for Nidalee. The CC misses, and he's on the run. And this is one of those fights that, you hate to see it happen, because even if Victor had killed Nidalee, blue team would still be available to Baron. So Sivir is out of low on HP, out of mana. Oh wait, no, she's full on HP and mana. But Jan is out of mana, and they have to retreat, they have to defend against those super creeps. So Twitch dies, and just the game is out of control right now for blue team. What do you do as red team? How do you stop this composition? And the answer is you have to have enough sustained damage or enough burst damage to go ahead, kill someone so quickly that the heals from Soraka, the heals from Kayle, the heals from Nidalee, the ult from Kayle just isn't enough to keep someone alive. But how do you burst someone through Kayle ult? How do you kill someone in a fight like this? And the answer is you have to be so far ahead you can do this. Unfortunately, they just don't have the damage. Victor can do quite a bit quite quickly, but the only person that really needs to survive in this game right now is Graves. He's the damage force, he's everything right now, and they have the support, they have the damage for it. Now this is actually a very interesting part of the game for me. I've noticed some teams like Moscow 5 love this part of the game because they tend to have very, very poke heavy teams. And the poke is pretty decent right now for blue team. They don't have AP Nidalee, so it's not the best in the world. But they have Baron buff, and that's going to provide enough HP regeneration to just go ahead and keep fighting, and then you factor in the 3 heals, and they're just going to win a poke war any day of the week. And I really like what happens, because this is a solo queue game. They go ahead, they play safely, they're just going for the inhibitors, not going for those risky dives, because they know they don't need to. They know that, alright, we can try and burst someone down, but we don't have a team that actually does that. So go ahead, take that inhibitor, and just clean up the outer towers, and just take control of the map and the inhibitors. They can fight with 3 inhibitors down, it's going to be almost impossible to defend. You just wait for all of these super creeps to push up, and it's so hard to fight super creeps. They do quite a bit of damage, have so much HP. And once again, red team's trying to defend at the tower. A spear hits Janna, they have to retreat. They're trying to poke, they just can't do anything. The damage just immediately gets healed up by anything. Anything home team does right now, they will heal up. And now comes the final fight. And this is what happens when they avoid Graves in a fight. So they initiate on the Mundo. He's CC'd in the tower. He's in a very, very bad position. Twitch is trying to hit anybody he can, hopefully trying to get a good lineup. And Graves, just watch him. He's just auto-attacking the entire time. And Mundo, despite being in one of the worst positions in terms of just taking damage, survives with that Kayle ult. Congratulations, HXC Gemini X, for getting a pentakill. And that's how this composition works. The carry doesn't die, and he carries a team. But the support makes sure that they're carrying the carry themselves. There's a few last words, so I'll go ahead and wrap that up. See you in a second. So I'll spend a second talking about Soraka and just how she lands and what she does. So she spams Star Call a lot. Like, that's what you do. You just go ahead, you mash Q like crazy. And it kind of works, because if you hit the enemy, they take a lot of damage, and if they keep fighting you, you keep hitting Q, and unless they have no cooldowns whatsoever, they will kill you. And you factor in Infuse too. Infuse is just this great little silence that will interrupt combos. It'll give you a brief little window of opportunity, and if you cast Infuse as they are trying to start their combo and don't let them do it, that right there will just delay their damage quite a bit. And also, if you cast Infuse as you suspect an enemy champion's cooldowns come up, that's not easy to do because you have to factor in CDR too. That's an extra little bit of time where you're going to be doing damage, and they won't be. To give that a little bit more perspective, if everything you have is on cooldown, silence doesn't do anything. But, back to Soraka, so you get very, very tanky with her. The common build ends up being Frozen Heart. Rylai's, I think I see quite a bit too. You might get a death cap, you might not. That's not what you're there for. You're there for the MR Shred, you're there for the 125 armor on Astral Blessing. Now, Support Soraka can try and do this too, but unfortunately she's going to be very squishy. And instead of being that front aggressive role, you're going to be in the back, just spamming Astral Blessing on your carry to make sure they don't die. So, different roles, and really the difference is levels and gold, which is MidRaka will have levels and gold, Support Raka will have a bit of gold, kinda. And so that's how Soraka will play out. This was not the best showcase of her in terms of aggression, but it was a good example of what it's going to be like to be against an aggressive jungler like Twitch. You're going to die. Like 90% of the time, let's say, you will die. Their ganks are so hard to avoid, someone like Twitch specifically, because he has that invisibility. And you deal with it by learning how to deal with it, which, once again, sounds kind of obvious, but you have to run into it. You have to get your butt kicked by it a few times. And you can be like, oh yeah, so I want to get that Vision Ward. I want to make sure I'm constantly on the retreat, and if my summoners are down, man, I am in for a world of trouble. And Maniac, I don't think he's actually run to many jungle Twitches, so this was a pretty good lesson for him. Once he died that first time, you noticed that on the second trip back, he bought a Vision Ward. Once he died to Twitch the first time, second trip back, he bought a Vision Ward. He died the first time to make sure Mundo kept blue buff, and that was something else. Now, that support composition, this is something that is getting more and more popular. I'm seeing it quite a bit more. It was done by Dignitas, and it was using Lulu, Soraka, and Taric, and this was kind of similar. You have 145 armor, I believe, from Taric's Armor Aura, and Soraka's W. Combine the two, you have double survivability against physical damage. Now you factor in Lulu's ultimate providing a just massive chunk of HP, and Lulu's getting farm, so she was actually getting AP for that ultimate, and now you have an extra, like, 500, let's just say 500 HP at one point in the game. You factor in the 145 armor, it's like 1300 HP in terms of effective HP against physical attacks. So that's really, really cool. And the compositions are just based off keeping someone important alive, and you just can't kill them. And looking at those compositions in that past game, think about what they had for the enemy team, the away team. They had Riven, they had Victor, they had quite a bit of burst, and actually quite a bit of execution because of Riven and Twitch, actually, with Expunge. So they had all this damage, but they just could not deal with the heal, they could not deal with the sustaining coming out from blue team. So you had Riven who would just hop in, try and do stuff. They'd hit an Astral Blessing target. That target would not take enough damage, and Riven would not be able to execute somebody with her ultimate. Now, the big thing is you have to reach team fights for that to happen, and you can be far behind. The support composition is a composition where you can be behind, and it's okay. You will not lose a game if you are 5,000 gold behind at the 20-minute mark. I've seen Dignitas come back from much, much bigger differences in gold. And they're a really good team, but this is just kind of how the composition works. That effective armor, that effective HP and survivability, it's always going to be there. Now, it does have problems if they have a AP-based composition. Something like, let's just say Rumble in the top lane, and then you have a very high AP damage character in the mid lane. Who cares about your armor? What the hell is your armor doing? It's doing nothing. It's doing nothing, you nerd. Nothing. So, it's not an every time strategy. And actually, if lanes do fail hard enough, you can just get pushed in and lose. But, this is just a nice little breakdown of a support composition and a nice little look at Soraka. I'm trying something new with these team composition aspects. I'm not sure how it's working out, so any feedback is appreciated. The studio is saying adios, and see you Saturday at 4 p.m. and Friday with a daily.